Welcome everybody. My name is Ian Cyrus Sloan, and today I will be casting the NAU versus Sac State Big Sky League of Legends games. We are getting into ban phase right away. NAU is going to be on red side for game one, and right away we already have some pretty interesting bans. Sac State coming out with the Fizz and the Evelyn ban, whereas NAU has followed up with Udyr and Alistair. All pretty solid bans around the board, in my opinion. A little less so from Sac State as we see the Wukong go through. I have to imagine that really they're just kind of going for what I would say is target bans onto NAU, whereas NAU is picking a lot more meta bans. First lock-in is going to be Camille from the side of Sacramento State. And honestly, even after the 11.4 nerfs, Camille still remains in a pretty strong state, as her W is the only thing that received a few second cooldown reduction. The follow-up response is going to be Skarner, which is going to be a bit of an interesting one. Skarner typically doesn't see too much play either in pros or in the professional setting, or even really in amateur settings, as far as I know. He's super reliant on having access to his spires, and because they go on a short cooldown after being captured, if in the middle of a team fight or in preparation for a fight, the enemy team captures his spires, he's actually going to be losing out on a lot of stats and gold value just because he doesn't have access to those zones, which give him, I believe, increased mana regen, maybe some cooldown. I've not actually updated myself on the champion in a while, so I do have to apologize for that. The follow-up pick for that, however, is going to be Rel, which is a super good pick right now. Rel is a newer champion, released, I believe, just before the new year. She's got two forms, because she mounts and dismounts her metal horse, I think that's what it is, and gains tank stats when she is off the horse and movement speed, and I believe when she remounts for a brief time, she'll be able to do a flip like the old volley bear, for those of you who may be familiar with that. Outside of that, we do see Thresh and Olaf being locked in by Sac State. Both very solid picks again. Thresh has always seen play at all levels. He's just a really solid all-around champion, has the potential to make picks, engage, and help his teammates disengage with the lantern. And Olaf, Olaf is Olaf. He's still a very strong early game jungler. I'm interested to see what kind of mythic item he'll be going this game, because he is one of the biggest abusers of Gore Drinker before it got repeated nerfs, and Olaf even got a couple nerfs himself to his passive and I believe his W. The other thing we do see coming out here is the Fiora, which is going to be a favorite of Calm Bird. So it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup into the Camille here. I would say it's largely a skill-based matchup. Fiora has a couple different options to use for her parry. She can parry the hookshot second part from Camille to get that stun portion off, or she can use it in the middle of a trade to get some of the damage avoided from the Camille Q, which is true damage on the second part, which, especially once Camille hits that 2-item power spike she's known for, is going to be a massive chunk of health, pretty much regardless of whatever you're playing. While I was rambling on about that, however, we did get on to the second round of bans. NAU is going to ban out Galio and Orianna, whereas Sac State is going to ban out the Kaisa and Silas. Those are all really good bans, honestly. Galio has extreme roaming potential. He is one of those mid laners that you kind of play for his, not necessarily global presence, but near global. Orianna is just a very kind of bread and butter champ all around. She has the potential to help with team engages, as well as just be a really, honestly, kind of crazy burst mage in fights. Kaisa and Silas, they're both pretty solid. Like I mentioned earlier, the thing with Silas is that he doesn't actually see as much pro play now. And if he does, it's more so in the mid lane, just because he has access to all of the enemy ultimates once he hits 6 and beyond. As we do get into the last set of picks here, we are going to see some bottom lane, the final bottom lane picks go through, as Senna and Jinx are locked in. both in pretty good positions now, I would say. Jinx received, I believe it was a base health buff as a result of 11.4 dropping, and Senna has had a lot of popularity with the Kraken Slayer Ginsu's build, which has seen some crazy damage, especially when she's gotten her souls stacked up. The final pick for Sac State is going to be that Corki there in the mid lane. Corki's been seeing a little bit of resurgence lately. I've not actually done all of the research as to why. And honestly, I haven't even seen much gameplay of him since the Season 11 changes hit with the new mythic items and item reworks as a whole. NAU is going to respond to that by last picking the Echo now, which is going to be an okay pick. Echo has some really hard snowballing potential if he gets ahead early. But honestly, you know, if he makes it, I would say more or less to the mid game, then he's in a pretty safe state as long as he's going even or is ahead. Other than that, he does kind of fall to some of those assassin tropes of falling behind and not being able to do a whole lot. Echo has at least a saving grace of being able to stun people with his W, as well as act as, you know, temporary tower bait for dives, because he has the chrono break to rewind time for himself and restore a good chunk of health while dealing some damage as he returns to the spot his clone is at. We will be on that 3-minute spectator delay, so while we are waiting on that, I'll be taking a little bit of time just to kind of go over what I think each team should be doing in these games, and, you know, just kind of what overall objectives might be, and just, you know, kind of filling in some of that time while we're waiting on getting into the game itself. On the side of Sac State, I see a very interesting comp, mostly relying on kind of a mid-game power spike, especially with stuff like the Camille and the Corki. As far as I remember Corki going, you know, he doesn't have a ton of early game pressure, but he does have a lot of roam potential, especially once he has the package come up, which is going to extend his W, the Valkyrie, into a supercharged version that gives him a ton of extra distance damage and will knock enemy champions out of the way. So it really serves as good opportunities to go either top or bottom, or maybe even help with a jungle invade if such a thing does occur. But yeah, mostly Sac State is going to be relying on the Olaf to kind of help them get into the mid game. You know, Camille is a definite 2-item power spike champion with the Triforce or Divine Thunder into Ravenous Hydra. NAU on the other hand is going to look to do a lot more scaling. Fiora got some buffs with 11.4 that increased her passive scaling with AD. So now I believe at 400 AD, a single vital is going to do 25% of your health and true damage, but you have to hit that big number first. You know, we do see Senna and Rel on the side of NAU as well. Rel is going to definitely be able to keep Senna safe in lane, just by acting as a big meat shield and providing a ton of crowd control. But they're overall not going to look to make. They're probably not going to look to make too many plays on their own without the help of Skarner or maybe even Echo. In large part, this is because of Senna's soul mechanic, which is one of those kind of, I wouldn't even say few at this point. League has added quite a bit of infinite stacking mechanics over the years, and Senna is just one of them. But she will be getting tons and tons of passive stats from her souls, and we'll be able to check on those throughout the game and to kind of note where some of those power spikes lie. Some of the stats she does get from those souls are crit chance, attack range, I believe some lifesteal, and attack damage, which is going to go absolutely crazy when she has both the Kraken Slayer and the Ginsu's Rage Blade that will eventually be duplicating her auto attacks onto people. Overall, from the side of NAU, I personally am looking to see Calm a Bird pop off on the top lane. The Fiora is a pretty good comfort pick for them, and I know they've been very happy with the recent buffs. I don't know how much of the pick they've actually been playing, but it is definitely going to be interesting to see how the lane goes, as that's really where Calm a Bird's strengths lie. And we are going to finish up that spectator delay here and be in the loading screen in just a minute. We'll be able to observe what players have gone for in terms of rune and summoner spell choices. I don't expect anything too crazy and out of the blue, but I can always be surprised. So as we do get into the loading screen here, we do have some pretty standard things all around. I have to say I'm a little bit surprised when it comes to, I'm going to say the Jinx, Keystone Rune Choice, and the Conqueror. It's not something I've seen all that often, as she's opted for something like Fleet Footwork or Lethal Tempo. You know, being able to scale that rocket attack speed up super high, especially as her passive stacks. You know, other than that, it's really nothing too strange all around. Grasp on Camille is a pretty standard thing to go nowadays, especially because you can opt for the Shield Bash rune, which gives you a lot more early game damage. Olaf has opted for the Ghost, which is going to make it a pretty valuable tool when he's going for those kind of run it down engages that he's so fond of doing. Part of the problem we see with that, though, is because he doesn't have flash, he has no ability to get over walls by himself without the assistance of a blast cone or a thresh lantern. So it's definitely going to be an interesting predicament if he gets caught out at all and doesn't have access to the Ragnarok. At the start of the game here, we don't see anything too crazy going on. Both teams have kind of set up that 5-point vision line. That is going to be a defensive kind of play, as both teams kind of look for, you know, being able to protect against invades from enemy junglers or laners, in all honesty. Rathpome has not been caught out, but Sac State did manage to get a ward into Rathpome's red side, so they are going to know that the red star is going to go through. At least that's what they're going to theorize, as Rathpome isn't going to have any more time to get to the blue buff camp. And overall, you know, it's nothing too crazy. Rathpome has opted for a leashless start on that Skarner, which I believe is entirely possible here, as he is going to use the Smite level 1 and just pick up that red buff early. Looks like a full red side clear will go through. And Olaf himself is going to have a pretty healthy clear at the end of the jungle, just because of the way his passive stacks along with his W lifesteal. Other than that, it's kind of business as usual. You know, I do believe we are going to see Sac State get some pretty good priority up here in the bottom lane. They are playing a much more aggressive, at least on paper, version of a duo here in the bottom lane. So Net and Piccolo are just going to be pretty satisfied with letting the wave come to them and just kind of farming it out while they wait for some potential jungle assistance. Common Bird up in that top lane is going to get a nice ward down into the river, as well as the blue side of Architect's jungle. Another thing I'd like to point out is that we do see Rathpome in the blue side of the jungle now, which means that with the ward that I believe the enemy bot lane threw in, he is going to get caught out here, and Olaf is going to know that both junglers are going to catch each other here on the bottom side of the map. Common Bird's actually going to be brought very low here, as the flash is brought out from Sal, who burns their own flash as well, but Common Bird is going to escape with their life, as we see some pings coming down in the bottom lane. Architect is going to catch out Rathpome here with the assistance of Corki. Smite goes through, as well as the flash from both the mid laner and the NAU jungler. Echo didn't really have too much of an opportunity to respond to this, and it is going to suck that Architect managed to smite away. I believe that's what went through. I could rewind that here in just a second. Yeah, I do believe that Rathpome did miss out on that Gromp there because it was smited away by Architect. So he is going to miss out on a little bit of gold and mostly just kind of that health boost that Gromp gives after the jungle changes. You know, it's a bit of a rough situation, but ultimately, you know, it is what it is. Olaf is the stronger champion in the early game, so it's not going to be easy for Rathpome to win any sort of 1v1. Unless his team helps make it a 2v1. We've also got potential problems going out here in the mid lane. All three of Sac State's kind of middle and top side of the map players have responded to make sure that Architect could get that double scuttle off, which is going to net a pretty big gold advantage and XP advantage early game, which is exactly what Olaf wants here. Backs did go through from both top laners, And at the moment, we see Kama Bird getting a very nice CS lead over Sal and taking some okay trades as well. Really, it's just kind of getting those grass procs off. Tianxi is going to get a nice Electrocute and Echo 3 hit proc off onto the Corki, which is going to make sure his lane opponent might actually have to back here. Down in the bottom lane, we see a little bit of a different story, but honestly, it's not one that's all too surprising. Piccolo was, or I'm sorry, Net was not supposed to really have a ton of priority in this lane. So with the lane pushed under tower, it's definitely a much harder it's definitely a much worse predicament in all honesty. Being able to lose those minions under tower and not being able to get that gold for them. As honestly, you know, again, the Senna and the Rel are just going to kind of try and get the Senna's soul count up as they wait for potential assistance, but they are going to have some problems last hitting under the tower here. At this point in time, we do see Sac State moving on to the first dragon of the game as missing pings come down. Piccolo is going to drop a ward over, and the blast cone will get hit by the Thresh, making sure Piccolo can't get over the wall over to that dragon pit. And with 4 members of their team in the dragon pit, first dragon, which is Ocean Dragon, a pretty valuable early game dragon, is going to go over to Sac State, giving them some extra health regen in these first few minutes. Trade going down in the top lane as well. Not too much will come of it. Kama Bird, I believe, is going to be using that potion there to try and stay relatively healthy. But they do have to be careful here as they are in kind of a shaky wave state. As Piccolo gets caught out, and First Blood will probably go out here to the Sac State bot lane. Piccolo is taking from the Ignite, and First Blood goes down to the Thresh with the Ignite taking the kill. Definitely a little bit of a rough predicament here for the bot lane. This is exactly what they don't want to happen. And you know, as much as they are just kind of wanting to scale, the problem with scaling bot lanes is that you have a much harder time kind of staying safe in these situations, because if the enemy bot lane has any sort of engage of their own without the jungle assistance, you're already playing on such a back foot position that you really have to play extra safe and make sure that you can't make any missteps. With some wave management though, and after some backs, I would like to point out that Hide It in my Sock has gone for the Berserker Greaves just rush, really, which is going to be an interesting one here as they opt for more attack speed. I think this is going to be an interesting first item choice here, because while it is a little bit cheaper and it does get those boots out of the way, it really doesn't do too much for overall damage. And actually, this is really what's going to get covered up here by the Conqueror. So I'm interested to see how much damage will actually come out from that Keystone by the end of the game. We've also got mid lane pushing in from the side of NAU. Echo sitting in a pretty uncomfortable 10 CS drop, in all honesty, and with the wave coming in, I believe Shadowstar is going to be able to clear that up right away and maintain that lead at a very healthy pace. We do also see Olaf moving on to the first Rift Herald of the game here, you know, making sure he's going to take advantage of his champion's early game power state and just get as many objectives done as fast as he can. Especially with the priority that his laners are helping him hold. Rift Herald did go down, and we do now see Olaf in the NAU red side jungle, which is going to be an interesting predicament here for Kama Bird, because if the Rift Herald does get dropped and a dive goes through, I don't see them surviving this very easily. So they have to make sure they clear this wave as fast and as best they can. While trying to get some of those grass procs on the Camille. I think we are going to see a dive out here as Rift Herald does get dropped. Level 8 gets hit for Kama Bird. Minions have started pressuring the tower. Ultimate goes down from the forum. Parry's burned early as both Camille ultimate goes down. Sentinel comes out as well, putting a bit of a shield up, but there is going to be no haven found for Kama Bird as they are the second death of the game. Tianxi is now approaching late to the party, just kind of making sure that wave gets cleared. A very interesting play coming in as they just kind of walked in 1v3. Rathbone is going to be the next member of NAU to the show. but is just going to be here to back up their teammate to make sure some of that vision gets cleared. Down in the bottom lane, we do see Net get caught by a hook here and take a good chunk of damage here, in all honesty. Kind of highlighting once again that NAU is in a really uncomfortable spot in this early game, as Olaf is going to be able to kind of run amok with objectives, as well as help his laners, you know, just get through the lane process, get fed, and get to that get to those mid game power spikes much faster. Next dragon is going to be that Infernal Dragon, spawning in about 15 seconds here. I have no doubt that Olaf is going to be going straight for it, especially as his bottom lane is going to help secure that Scuttle Crab and the Skarner Spire. Dragon has spawned at this point, and it does get started up right away. 4 members of Sac State are sitting here in the bottom lane, making sure this dragon goes over safely. NAU's bottom lane is going to try and go. However, the Valkyrie package comes out from Corki as this dragon goes down. Magnet Storm comes out from Piccolo, leaving Shadowstar at a very low amount of HP, popping that barrier to make sure he stays alive. Wrathpoem now taking a very dangerous 1v1 here onto the Olaf, as he has no Skarner Spire. However, Tianchi is here to make the assist happen, and with the Ignite ticking down, the first kill for NAU does go over. Common Bird in the top lane is looking for that full kill onto the Camille there. Won't be able to pop that last vital quite in time. However, it does go through, getting a ton of healing off as the solo kill comes out for the Fiora. A very good turnaround for NAU here, making sure they can get themselves on the board. I don't believe Rel died in that fight, which is honestly a really good thing to have happen, as the only thing they did lose was that dragon. As much as it does suck to lose out on another objective, the third dragon of the game being put in means the rift changes have been revealed, as well as what dragon soul we'll be seeing this game, which is going to wind up being that mountain soul, which is going to honestly go crazy for some of those tankier champions, providing boost to their armor and magic resist, as well as getting the refreshing shield out of combat. Flash ultimate comes out from Wrathpoem here. Shadowstar is looking to be the victim of a gank. Tianchi is going to pick up that second kill there, and a very clean effort there from NAU. Piccolo is putting out some good crowd control on to hide it in my sock. However, the Thresh Lantern is going to make sure the Jinx gets out safely, and no further action will go down unless Woozy looks for a Thresh hook under tower. Things seem to have settled down here for just a moment. Both junglers have opted to just kind of going back and clearing their laners' respective waves or their own camps. At this point, we do see Net sitting at a pretty, I would say, okay 24 souls. As we can see here through the Absolution passive, Senna does have 18 increased attack damage, as well as a little bit more range and some crit strike chance. So, you know, that's just kind of what we're looking to see come out from the Senna. Problem is that we're not going to see it come out until much later in the game, where those stats start to really make a difference. And honestly, if NAU can't get themselves to that point in the game, they won't be able to come up to their win condition, especially since it seems they're losing out on a ton of tower plates. Four plates have gone over to the side of NAU, as they've been working down some of the tier 1 towers from the side of Sac State. However, Sac State has taken 7 out of 15 total tower plates, which is going to be a really good chunk of money going over. And they will actually pick up a First Blood tower as well. Common Bird is going to pick up the first tower for their team as well, or as a return. And Camille does burn the teleport here. However, Skarner is in the nearby jungle, so Camille's going to have to be really careful here. Common Bird taking a little bit of an interesting trade. Camille ult going down as well, but the parry comes out from Common Bird, and the Skarner ult with the suppression does go through, making sure Wrathpoem has plenty of opportunity to put down some damage. Senna ult comes in flying from across the map, making sure the assist goes through, and netting yet another kill for NAU, finding themselves at a pretty good kill score, at least, of 2-4. Despite the kill lead, though, gold scores do relatively remain the same. there was a pretty good chunk of damage here coming in from Tianqi as they are clearing that mid wave to prevent any more pressure from Olaf and Corki. NAU really needs to be careful here though, as with Sac State securing the first tower of the game and being able to kind of free themselves up, they have a ton more roam opportunity now, as well as being able to just in general put pressure in other lanes. Couple first items coming in across the board, most of them being mythics. We do have the Ravenous Hydra on Kama Bird. But one thing I'm interested to see here is the shield bow on Corki. Corki has a very unique position on being able to do essentially hybrid damage in a lot of his kit. I believe his passive auto attacks are divvied up into mostly magic damage. So he does have a little bit of that physical damage, but because he has passive modifying his auto attacks, he's going to have honestly a lot more magic damage despite building the attack damage items. Third dragon of the game is about to spawn here in just a second. NAU this time is actually going to be the team with priority here, as they're doing a little bit of bushwhacking, making sure they can secure both Scuttle Crab and the Skarner Tower for this fight, which is going to be huge when that team fight does break out. Corki does have access to the package, and Rathbone is going for some of that vision clearing, and lots of skill shots narrowly missing on the Rathbone and the Dragon Pit there. NAU is once again going to be fighting for vision. They don't have the priority they had just a few seconds ago, but they do still have access, I believe, to that Skarner Tower. Architect is going to be the one cut out here as the Ragnarok goes through and the Unstoppable is in. Dragon has been started and is about to go down half HP from the side of Sac State. NAU is at this point looking for an end to the fight. However, Corki Valkyrie is going to displace tons of the NAU members. Humility will go down, as well as Common Bird is trying to get a kill onto the Jinx here. Rathhome is going to go down, however, and Architect is now back into the pit as Common Bird is the second to go down to the fight. Dragon does go over to Sac State, putting them on soul point, and Net is going to be left on a sliver of HP, running for his life from the Camille, trying to make something happen, but all it's going to take is another auto attack and a quick kick from the Camille, and Piccolo is going to be the fourth casualty of the fight as Sac State takes a dragon and a perfect fight. Tianqi, the only remaining member of NAU left alive. A really rough situation here for NAU. They had the kill lead just a moment ago, but honestly, since they committed really hard for Architect here in that fight and didn't get that first kill, I think that's kind of ultimately what set them up to kind of have this downfall in the later fight. The big difference maker again in here is going to be Corki once the actual fight broke out, being able to displace a bunch of those NAU members, allowing Camille to go in. You know, even though Fiora had the ultimate onto the Jinx, there was no full pop, meaning Jinx actually managed to get out not unscathed but alive. At the very least here, NAU is going to be able to take that tier 1 mid lane tower, which means they do have a honestly slight tower advantage over the enemy team, but they are lacking a little bit in gold now, as we're not looking at actually 1,000 gold, but more just along the lines of 600 or 700. There in the background, you do hear, I believe that is going to be Rathcomb, or the NAU jungler, looking for a fight. They are playing again 3 minutes ahead of us, and I'm sure we're going to have an exciting fight here to cast here in just a few minutes. But at this point, things have settled down once again, as we're kind of in that post-fight lull, as waves get pushed through, towers are going to be taken, and the second Rift Herald of the game is actually going to be going over to Sac State again here. Common Bird and Rathbone are looking for the catch onto the Camille here. Very good flash are coming out as well. Common Bird is going to put the parry through, and with no more tower damage coming through onto the Fiora, they're going to pick up that second kill and have plenty of priority here in the bottom lane. Problems do arise in the top lane though, as Tianqi is playing a very aggressive game despite being in a possible 1v3 situation. That Rift Herald does go over to the Olaf once again, which means a ton of tower pressure is going to be had from Sac State here, as well as the empowered recall on the Olaf. So I'm actually a little more nervous than anything to see how NAU is going to handle this next kind of big threat, as Rift Herald should be around in time for the next dragon to spawn, I believe. If not, it's going to be around for when the Baron spawns. So if Sac State has any sort of priority here in the bottom lane, they can actually drop Rift Herald and force someone from the side of NAU to go over and take care of Shelly while she is looking. As we do miss out some action in the mid lane here. Honestly, it looked like a really good fight for NAU here. They're taking a 2-for-1 trade. Tianchi is going to be going into that chrono break here as Rathbone and Net are going to be 2v1ing now in a 3v1 onto the Camille here as Common Bird gets the teleport and the Fiora are off. 2-item power spike has been hit here for the Fiora, putting in a ton of damage. Suppression goes out from the Skarner. Common Bird goes on a killing spree as Architect is now chasing down Rathbone. They will go down, but not without the return kill. Ultimately landing NAU in a very good and safe spot here. Lots of pings coming down on the Baron. Both junglers have been killed. So NAU does have to really be careful here of the Jinx Rocket because of its execute damage, being able to steal the Baron, and honestly a very easy fashion without the assistance of the Summoner spell Smite. NAU also has another factor to be worried about, which is the fact that honestly they don't do Baron all that fast. I would say their highest DPS is actually going to be the Fiora here, but because Net on the Senna does not have a ton of attack speed, even with the Berserker's Greaves and the Kraken Slayer, and he was actually going to be forced off the Baron here as Common Bird is brought very low by the Jinx Rocket. Sal diving in onto the enemy team and looking for some sort of damage, maybe a kill here. Echo Stun does go through, and NAU is now on the back foot, retreating from the Baron pit, trying to make anything happen. Rathbone hasn't re-entered the fight as the suppression comes through onto the Jinx. A very good layering of CC as Tianchi goes unstoppable. Valkyrie goes through and is putting down a bunch of damage as Shadowstar is going to take down Piccolo next in this fight. Rathbone and 2 other members of NAU here are going to be chasing down as a triple kill gets put up here for Tianchi on the Echo, landing them a 7-0 score with a 700 gold shutdown. Actually make that 1,000 because of the 300 that a kill normally grants. And Echo is going to be a huge priority target here in these next fights. Once again, this actually is an even greater spot for NAU here as the 4th dragon of the game has spawned. NAU has 0 dragons to Sac State's soul point, honestly. So they're going to be able to take this first dragon down and deny that soul point for another 5 minutes, which is also going to delay the spawn of the Elder Dragon even later, which is both a good and a bad thing. Elder Dragon is one of those game-winning objectives, much like Baron. But it does make the game just that much more exciting as well to see, especially if NAU manages to go for a 3-dragon reverse sweep and put both teams here on soul point, making that last mountain dragon a super valuable take. Common Bird here is going to take a little bit of damage from the red buffed up Jinx, but with some dashes over the wall, it's not going to amount to too much else. And I believe they're just going to opt for a back here as they look to spend some of their hard-earned gold. I'm actually going to be proven wrong here in just a moment, as Common Bird has looped back around through his own jungle to make sure he can get back to those waves. Rift Herald is going to go down here in the middle lane for Sac State. I'm a little curious to see if the charge will go through, as NAU is going to be able to put up some pretty good spots here onto Shelly. She is going to be vulnerable to the crowd control as well. And with no charge coming through into Shelly, it's actually a bit of a better play here for NAU, as they do get 2 more Senna Souls from the epic monster kill, as it does still technically count, as well as getting a little bit of pocket change. With the next mountain dragon coming up here in just about 3 minutes and 30 seconds, the kind of item of the night is actually going to be up in the Baron pit. As we see both top laners on the bottom side of the map, no teleports for either of them quite yet. They will be up at around the same time though, so if a fight breaks out after the summer spells have come off of cooldown, then it's definitely going to be a much more dynamic instance of it, as they are just kind of stuck down in the 1v1 at the moment. And now we kind of initiate what I like to call the Baron dance, as both teams vie for vision in the pit and just priority for the objective overall. It's really something that can go not horribly wrong, but just regular wrong. If somebody gets caught out, especially if it's one of the junglers, or if the junglers get revealed in the bottom lane or in the bottom side of the map, then that kind of gives a go ahead for the enemy team to just kind of rush down the objective and go for getting a gold lead, or just making sure the other team cannot have access to that objective. We did see some resets go through. I don't believe anybody has completed their third item quite yet, unless you count the Echo with the Magi Soul Stealer, which is going to be a very high risk, high reward item. Past, I believe, the 10 stacks that Tianchi is sitting on now, the value per kill when you have the item in your inventory massively increases, because you get 4 glory stacks on kill, and that would be 20 ability power per kill, not counting anything you may get from assists. Flash and a Skarner ulti do come through here from Wrathbone. However, the Quicksilver Sash is going to make sure Jinx does not get locked up by any further CC, and Wrathbone is actually going to find themselves on the wrong end of the fight, as 3 members of Sac State are going to take them down. This is kind of what I was talking about here, when we don't want to see the junglers get caught out when Baron is on the board. It was a very good try from Wrathbone using that Flash Skarner ulti to get the pick onto the enemy AD carry. However, I don't believe they noticed the Quicksilver Sash in the inventory, which really put a dampener on the whole plan, because all Jinx had to do was press a single button and she was out scot-free, leaving the rest of Sac State to just wail on an absolutely vulnerable Skarner. Possible Baron steal is going to come out here from NAU as they're looking to get into the pit. However, the Smite Seeker does go through from Olaf, and a late Blast Cone puts Net and Tianchi over, delivering a free kill, in all honesty, to Sac State, making the situation a ton worse for NAU. This is really not what we want to see in this situation. Resets will go through for the side of Sac State, as they're going to spend the money earned from the Senna kill on all sides, as well as the gold that Baron itself offers. And honestly, despite the way it's felt at some points in the game, the game state has been very even all throughout, at least in terms of raw gold. At this moment, NAU is actually only a little bit behind, as the suppression goes through onto the Thresh this time to go deep in the enemy lane, in the enemy backline. Sal is going to take that next kill, as the shutdown from the Echo goes over to the Camille as well. Shadowstar is going to be the first and only, I believe, victim of NAU in this fight here, as Soul Point is going to go over with no contest, unless Senna really tries to run it down hard and secure the dragon here. But without any further action coming out of the blue side, or out of the NAU blue side jungle, Mountain Soul is going to go over here to Sac State, and they're going to be reaping the rewards of, again, that increased armor and magic resist, as well as the shield that refreshes out of combat, which is going to massively help their seed potential, because NAU does have a little bit of poke from stuff like the Senna, but all Sac State has to do is make sure they're out of combat for, I believe, 6 seconds, and that shield will just automatically regen. No, and it's not even one of the it's not a shield that will regen slowly. It's just as soon as the cooldown is up, the shield is back up in full. NAU is really finding themselves on the back foot here. It's really not a good thing that they lost that fight as hard as they did. The Magi Soul Stealer kind of showing its face as that high risk, high reward item, as Tianchi did lose 6 stacks off of that fight, meaning that was, I believe, a total of 20 or 30 ability power. And they're really going to be trying to weight down this Baron buff from the enemy team, in preparation for something like the next Baron, which is going to be, I believe, Baron number 3, as well, or maybe even something like the Elder Dragon. Immediate catch out here comes out from the Thresh's Wrathbone, just goes straight for the Skarner suppression. And he is going to make a very nice catch here. However, they do have to be very concerned about the bottom side of the map, as Camille is now on that split push rampage. Tianchi is going to be the one from NAU to respond to that bottom lane push. However, with Olaf solo pushing in the mid lane as well, It's actually now going to fall to Sac State to stop the backs of NAU as the NAU base gets assaulted from all sides. Shadowstar is going to die to a dive here from both Common Bird and Wrathpoem. Common Bird is now going to have to be the one on the back end of the foot here as the Jinx rocket scores its hit onto the Fiora here, securing a kill, and Jinx is now chasing down 1v2. Net and Tianchi are in. Net does use the Senna ultimate to get some shielding off. However, Hyatt My Sock goes on a rampage, being able to take down that slow Rel with the Kraken Slayer and that Get Excited passive, making sure that NAU really is put back into their place for making such a ballsy play. Once again, it's another story of NAU finding themselves on the back foot. At this point in the game, they are down 3.9k gold, which is going to be basically a full item for a single person. However, that does get distributed among multiple team members, so it's mostly down to components as well as other things. NAU at this point is kind of looking again for those picks. Wrathpoem was looking for a bit of a play here up onto Woozy. However, Architect is going to be in the NAU red side as well as the Jinx, with Corki following soon after. So it is going to be a 5v5 here on the red side should a fight break out. Possible catches may be coming out here. Senna W does root out the Olaf, and Tianchi gets a very nice dive over the red side buff. Teleport coming out from the Camille as she now enters the fight. Pickle looking to be the first one to go down for the fight. Shadowstar is going to pop the barrier and the shield bow, getting a ton of extra HP. However, that won't really help as a double kill is picked up here for Sal. But now it looks like NAU is down 4 members to 2, taking a very grievous fight. And unless Common Bird can make a miracle play happen, I have full assumption that honestly Sac State is just going to end game 1 here. Good sidestep coming out as some true damage as well as tower shots go down on the Woozy. Common Bird does get that first kill out. Fiora is out onto the Camille, and Common Bird is looking to get that healing off. Won't really happen too much though, as Sal is going to narrowly escape with their life and go on a killing spree. First respawn timers have come up for NAUs. It looks like they're actually going to be able to mount a final defense here onto their base. This Common Bird actually did hold out just long enough for those respawns to come through. Next Baron is going to be up on the table, however, and through some quick resets as well as respawn timers of their own, Sac State is actually going to be a very good position here just to rush straight to the objective and put a lot of pressure down on it. Speaking of timing, Corki does also have access to the package once again, giving him that great engage tool on these fights, as well as the damage that comes out of the fire trail. In an interesting kind of twist of things, NAU is actually going to not contest this Baron at all, instead opting to go for the Elder Dragon, which isn't even up for more than 30 seconds still. It's honestly a bit of a confusing play here. I understand that they are going to try and kind of make that last-ditch effort to get some sort of objective on the board for themselves after they took that one Mountain Dragon earlier in the game. But with the rotate immediately coming out here from Sac State, it looks like Elder Dragon is automatically going to be that contest objective. Valkyrie comes out from Shadowstar as the Fiora goes down. Sentinel is going to shield up the members of NAU. However, Piccolo is going to be first to die, followed quickly by Tianchi. Fiora is going to pick up the kill for NAU onto the Corki. However, with the Olaf and the Jinx hot on the heels of their team, with a axe finding its mark onto the Senna, NAU is once again going to lose 3 members for the price of 1. And with Baron empowered minions coming in and no mage to be able to put down the magic damage needed to clear the wave, NAU is probably just going to lose the game here. Towers are going to be assailed by Sac State as the Jinx Get Excited goes through. Common Bird and Wrathpoem are going to be putting down some damage as they can. However, with 4 members of the enemy team assailing the Nexus, it is going to be game 1 going over to Sac State. And we'll be back in just a few minutes with game 2. Welcome back for game 2 of NAU versus Sacramento State. We are going to be once again getting right into the ban phase, as NAU is going to be the first to ban as the teams have swapped sides. So NAU is going to be on blue side, whereas Sac State is going to be on red side. First few bans are coming through here. So far, nothing too different from last game, as we see the Udyr and the Evelyn go through, followed by the Alistair. Again, once again, maintaining that same ban state. Wukong does get banned one spot earlier this time, which is going to be a rather strong ban all around. I didn't really get the chance to go into detail, but Wukong is still a very strong top laner, as well as I believe Kama Bird has been playing it a lot recently. Final ban of round 1 for NAU is going to be that Corki, making sure they don't have to deal with those package engages coming through again. Echo is going to be the counter ban, as that was the one pick of NAU's that popped off last game. First pick for NAU is actually going to be the Seraphine. Very strong pick all around. Can be flexed possibly into mid, but mostly in either the support or carry position in the bottom lane. So it's interesting to see what NAU is going to do with that. But either way, they do have a very valuable tool for helping engage on fights, as well as help keep teammates alive. Return pick from the side of Sacramento State is going to be Thresh, kind of keeping again, or doing a lot of what we saw in the first ban phase of this game, where they are following a very kind of similar pattern to what they had last game. Thresh has a lot of synergy with a lot of different bot laners, because he has access to the lantern to be able to help them disengage, as well as engage and make things happen on his own. So he definitely has a very versatile set of partners to choose from. Architect is going to lock in on the Nidalee here, which is going to be an interesting pick. I'm curious to see whether we're going to see a full damage Nidalee build with something like the Night Harvester, or if we're actually going to see something a little more along the supportive side, where we see AP junglers a lot of times nowadays going something like the Moonstone Renewer with the Staff of Flowing Water. Vayne is going to be the second lock-in here for NAU. Just kind of making sure NAU has access to a really good hyper carry champion. If Vayne gets fed, it's a really big problem for the enemy team, because she has access to so much mobility through her tumbles, as well as just an absolute insane amount of damage through her W, which is going to be the Silver Bolt, which do percent true damage every third auto attack on the same target. An interesting pick is going to go through here for okay. We'll be right back. Any apologies about that. There was a error on the side of NAU, as they had intended to lock a different champion in. Draft has been restarted, and we'll be seeing the same picks and bans as we saw before, up until the mistake happened. After which we'll see the rest of draft go, hopefully in smooth fashion. once again, we do see, you know, those same bans that we were just talking about. Stuff like the Udyr and the Alistair, followed by the Corki, Evelyn, and Wukong. We do see that Seraphine pick come out once again. You know, it's a really strong champion. Even after a little bit of changes, I believe she hasn't really gotten too many nerfs or buffs. Mostly just little things to kind of tweak her win rate. The Fiora is going to be locked in once again for Calma Bird up in the top lane. And now we will be proceeding with the rest of draft as planned. Right out the gate, I see kind of an interesting team comp coming out from NAU. I'm actually not too sure what to think about it. They do have options. They do have plenty of options in the remaining roles to fill in any sort of strategy they're actually going to be running here. Kai'Sa is going to be the response here from Sac State. Kai'Sa still a very strong pick despite some of the recent nerfs that have come through on her Q, and I believe it was just her Q. I could be wrong about that, but her Q did receive some damage nerfs on both single target and overall damage. As we enter the second round of ban phase here, we are going to see the Fizz get banned out, followed by the Malphite, which is going to be a pretty good ban, I would say. You know, Malphite's one of those kind of he's a brain dead champ. I'm going to be honest here. You know, he only has one skill shot, and it's Azar, and all he needs to do is hit it on one people to be a valuable champion in a team fight. Ideally, yes, you do want to be hitting multiple people, but he has a lot of value for such a low level of input. The final ban here from Sac State is going to be that Skarner. Not entirely sure why they banned it out here, but that's mostly because I'm not all too familiar with the Nidalee Skarner jungle matchup. So I suppose that Skarner may have an advantage in early 1v1s, although I could be entirely wrong about that. And if I am, someone can feel free to tell me. Last ban is going to be coming in here for NAU, and it is going to be Cassiopeia. Pretty good mid lane ban overall. You know, I actually really liked the ban given the amount of mobility they have here on 2 out of their 3 champions. As Cassiopeia's W does apply the grounded status effect, which means you can't use any sort of movement abilities outside of, you know, walking on your own 2 feet. Second round of picks is going through, and we will see Orianna locked in here for Sacramento State. Very good, as I mentioned last game, kind of on that burst mage front, as well as being able to make a huge difference in those team fights with the command shockwave. Kayn is actually also going to be locked in here for Rathbone on the side of NAU. I seriously doubt we're going to see it flexed anywhere else. So it's definitely going to be an interesting game depending on what form Kayn decides to go. Right out the gate, because there are actually no melee champs on the side of Sacramento State, it's going to be a blue Kayn game, which means he's going to be doing a ton of burst damage, as long as he doesn't fall behind, mind you, as he is going to be opting for that assassin heavy playstyle. Syndra is going to be the final pick here for NAU, and it's just going to be another good safe scaling option. You know, once he hits the 2-3 item power spikes, mostly in terms of the 3 item for Syndra, she has a ton of damage in kit. The interesting pick we also see coming out here of Sacramento State is the Gangplank. I myself am a huge fan of Gangplank. I just love the champion in general. But he does provide a lot of value overall as honestly a really safe scaling pick. All he has to do is make it through lane and get to level 13. And as soon as he gets to level 13 with honestly even 2 items, he doesn't even need the 3, although the third item is much nicer. He has the ability to impact team fights in such a big way with his cannon barrage, putting down a slow damage over time zone, as well as being able to do tons of burst damage with the powder kegs. Overall in this matchup, it's actually it's more of one I have to talk about because I am such a big fan of the Gangplank pick. Ultimately, it's up to Gangplank to make good proper use of his passive and the Grasp of the Undying procs in lane to put down some damage onto his lane opponent. If he's not careful about that, Kama Bird on the Fiora can actually abuse Gangplank super hard, especially in these early levels if the barrel minigame gets outplayed, especially since Fiora has the auto resets from, I believe, Q may be one, I'm not entirely sure about that one, but the E as well. We are once again in that 3-minute spectator delay. We are down to about 2 minutes and 20 seconds here. After that, we'll be getting right into the game, as the players have been playing for just just under a minute actually already. But overall, I'm actually not too big a fan of NAU's comp here. It seems like very much a solo queue comp in my eyes, because you honestly have carry positions filled in each of the lanes. It's not to say that Fiora doesn't do her job as a split pusher well, but Fiora can carry a game single-handedly. Kane can carry a game single-handedly. Syndra can carry a game single-handedly. In fact, what she really wants to do is just be blowing up a single person anyway in a team fight. And Vayne can really pop off in these team fights. So I'm really worried to see what NAU's front line is going to look like here, especially because Sac State has access to stuff like the Thresh and the Gangplank, and even though Gangplank will not be an actual frontliner, so to speak, he could opt for a much more bruiser style build, although that's not really what's popular nowadays, as stuff like Immortal Shield Bow is actually a much more popular build because of the lifeline passive as well as the critical strike chance it offers. We are down to about a minute left on the spectator delay. Once again, I put my input through on the top lane matchup. Bottom lane, I think, is going to be a lot more interesting than the previous game, just because Piccolo and Net on the Vayne Seraphine actually have a chance of playing a little aggressively into the Kai'Sa Thresh, especially if Woozy misses a hook. It's definitely going to be a good window for Net and Piccolo to go in and maybe look for a trade or possibly even a kill. Mid lane is probably going to need more jungle assistance. I would say on both sides, unless Syndra opts for something like the Ignite, then honestly, once the level 6 hits, then Syndra's a really big 1v1 threat. But I honestly don't see Orianna doing too much solo killing, unless a possible lead is given through from Architect or through other means if a roam window opens up. And as we finish up the spectator delay here, we will be getting into the loading screen here shortly. Once again, being able to observe some of those summoner spell choices as well as the keystone runes chosen by each of the players. Actually wind up crashing here. And we are into game 2, which will be starting up here in just a moment. Apologies for the delay. And as we are fully back into game proper now, we do see some of those keystone runes and the honestly the early play options brought out by both teams. Sac State has once again opted for the 5-point vision, playing a very defensive vision game here in the first minute or so. NAU is going to actually put a 5-man bottom lane down, as I believe they're honestly expecting an invade come out from Sac State. First recall will go out from Kama Bird though, as they are going to be up in that top lane or top side of the map, not top lane. I would like to point out that this game, instead of the Doran's Blade that they had in the Camille matchup, they have the Doran Shield, which is going to be a lot better into the Gangplank matchup here, especially because it offers it offers, I believe, the same amount of health, but it's better against poke heavy champions because it gives you more health back over time, as opposed to relying on something like the Omnivamp that a Doran's Blade provides. All in all, nothing too strange coming out from either team in terms of Keystone or Summer spell choices. The only kind of one I would have a question about would be the Conqueror on the Nidalee, because Nidalee does want kind of a more supportive role, typically speaking, in the jungle nowadays. And immediately in this level 1 game state, we see the Grasp of the Undying Gangplank coming through and shining, putting down a good chunk of damage onto Common Bird. He does have the Corrupting Potion as well as the Time Warp Tonic with Biscuits, so he's going to have a lot of early lane sustain, especially even with these kind of heavy mana costs that his Q has in the beginning. But he's just going to be able to put down a good chunk of priority here onto his enemy laner, or at least get some of the extra health that Grasp of the Undying offers when you do wind up proccing it. Through an early jungle invade actually coming out from Shadowstar, Rathbone is going to find out that, or is going to be able to secure most of that Raptor camp away, and I believe is only going to be one creep score down to his opponent, who is now moving on to their own Raptor camp after doing a full blue side clear. I'm interested to see if both junglers are going to be doing full clears here, as we see the Orianna get a good trade-off with the Phase Rush proc. Syndra is going to be trying to poke down when she can. However, with the current minion state she actually has, she's going to be pushing that wave in sooner rather than later, which means Nidalee might actually see a mid lane gank opportunity. Down in the bottom lane, we do see some priority going over to Sac State, once again, just because they are playing that Thresh, and Thresh has a very aggressive play style, or at least he can opt for it. And in the case of NAU having an Enchanter support, this is what Sac State is going to go for here. Both junglers have actually avoided each other here on the map and have instead gone for opposite sides of the map, or have gone for the opposite scuttle crabs from each other. Right now, the most action we see is actually up in the top lane and a little bit in the mid lane, as laners are taking trades with one another. We are seeing a little bit of priority go back over to the side of Sac State here. Rathbone is actually going to opt for the first gank of the game here. However, after a W and a few auto attacks from Orianna, that's going to be kind of left alone. And Kane is actually going to be very satisfied here with just taking a little bit of points, going over toward the blue form. And just, you know, getting a little bit of that starting progress onto his transformation. Once again, we do see more pings coming down into the mid lane here, as Shadowstar is actually going to be the victim of another gank from Rathbone, getting a good poke off from the Kane QW combo, as well as Tianchi getting a QE combo off. Common Bird is actually going to take a barrel trade here from Sal, as the Conqueror proc does get up. However, without using Flash, Common Bird is not going to look to chase any more kills, because they know that their lane opponent has access to the Flash as well, and it would really just be a trade of summoner spells. Important milestone here for GP in these early stages of the game is that 700 gold Sheen buy point, which means he's going to have a lot more early damage in lane, because Sheen has its natural interaction with his Q, as the parlay does apply on hit effects and essentially counts as a ranged auto attack. The Common Bird is actually going to be a little bit harder pressed here, especially if Cell gets multiple Grasp procs off, as well as the Trial by Fire passive procs. Common Bird does have a rather interesting time in the minion wave here, as the GP is actually taking a very poor trade. Flash is going to go down from Sal here. Not entirely sure why it was used, as he probably should have waited out the Fiora flash. But nonetheless, he does get out with his life for the time being, and is just going to be content to sit back and lane for a minute and let some potions do some healing. Three members of Sac State have instead gone for the first dragon of the game, which is going to be a mountain dragon, meaning we will not see that soul once again. Common Bird gets the flash off and has the Q on, or the ultimate onto the gangplank here. Very slow, goes down, and now it's a full-on tower dive. Common Bird is going to have to back off here after burning that flash. Shadow Star is going to be the reinforcements that Sal is looking for here. Command Shockwave goes down, but entirely whiffs on the Common Bird, not being able to get any sort of damage or kills off. Apparently, Orianna also flashed for that, meaning she's down both of her summoner spells, giving Tianxi in the mid lane a huge advantage should a 1v1 break out there later on. Piccolo down in the bottom lane taking some very heavy damage. Uzi landing a hook, but onto a melee minion. Not seeing first blood quite yet. It is just past the 7-minute mark, which means first blood typically would have gone down by now. So actually, in terms of a normal League of Legends game, I think we're actually seeing a bit of a later first blood. We do, at this moment in time, see both junglers getting an invade off. Kane opting for the enemy Krug camp, where Nidalee was stealing the enemy red buff, a far more valuable take. In my opinion, just because even though Krugs do offer a good chunk of gold, they actually don't offer the same amount of gold as a buff. Very good condemn here coming off of the Vayne, getting some good damage off as the ignite goes down. Hide My Sock is going to be put down pretty low as Woozy's going to flash over the wall. Net is getting a nice flash over the wall again. However, the Gangplank ultimate is going to secure first blood as Woozy puts down the return ignite, punishing Net for the overly aggressive play. Teleport at this point is going to come down from the Syndra here, looking to maybe get a kill. She does have the flash available as well, and it does get used. However, Hide My Sock is going to flash for themselves, but with the Syndra ultimate point and click damage coming through, Syndra is going to find herself a kill and honestly make that teleport a little bit more worth it in the end. Up in the top lane is kind of business as usual. However, we do have pings coming down in the mid lane. Syndra E does come down, and the command Shockwave gets fat fingered by Shadowstar as the Umbral Trespass from Kane is going to pick up his first kill of the game and get even more points going over to that blue form. Honestly, not entirely sure what happened with Shadowstar there. Wasn't able to quite get that sombrero off on the Orianna and get that kill through, and now we actually see Wrathbone putting in pretty good damage onto Architect here as the invade onto the enemy red buff comes through for the side of NAU. With no mid laner there at the moment, Sac State is actually going to be a little bit harder pressed because Tianxi has the opportunity to go help their jungler, whereas Sal on the top side of the map is going to be put in a harder game state just because of the pressure coming in from the Fiora. At this point in the game, since things have taken a little bit of a lull and no Rift Herald is being taken, I'd actually like to point out some of the creep score differences around the map. Common Bird has a pretty hefty 71 to Gangplank 76 or 46. And he's going to be sitting on a pretty good chunk of gold here, actually about 500 gold up on his opponent, despite his opponent having an assist on from the earlier kill in the bottom lane. However, on the other side of the map, we do see Vayne falling a little bit behind here in terms of gold versus Kai'Sa, because Kai'Sa again has the assist from the Gangplank kill earlier, even though Woozy is the one that has the actual kill credit. So Vayne's actually going to be down about 300 gold here to Kai'Sa, more like 400 down at this point. With the priority they have at this time, Sac State's bot lane is going to look for a possible invade or mostly just vision secure, as they do know that the second dragon in the game, which is going to be a cloud dragon, is up in less than a minute. So it's definitely be interesting on the side of NAU here to try and get back some of that priority. Maybe look for a possible kill onto the enemy bottom lane before this fight breaks out. Hook does go through and Piccolo whiffs the Seraphine ultimate. Wrathbone is going to take a bunch of damage here from Shadowstar as there are now 4 members of Sac State in the enemy bottom lane, as they are really trying to push more priority over onto this second objective. It's a good and smart play coming out from the side of Sac State. The only difference here is that if that Seraphine ult had hit, I think NAU actually would have had a play. we actually do have the first mythic item completion of the game at this point in time. It is going to be the Prowler's Claw on the Cane. Note that he actually has opted for a straight rush of his mythic item and not even going for those tier 1 boots to help get a little bit of that extra movement speed to help him rotate throughout the jungle. Gangplank, on the other hand, is going for a component build and is just kind of stuck with, honestly, a very late item, a very late first item. Calm Bird is going to be able to put some damage down on the Sal here, however, with the orange making everything K. And a quick Q with the grass proc. Calm Bird's actually going to be the one finding themselves on the wrong end of the trade here. Second Dragon is going to be started up here by NAU as they actually managed to sacrifice the priority they have the bottom lane. 4 members of Sac State are going to be collapsing here as the Gangplank ult goes down. A whiffed hook and a shockwave from the Orianna is going to kill Piccolo here. As Tianchi on the Syndra is going to be the next to fall. Vayne is going to be stuck in the enemy blue side, trying to go for that execute. Movement speed does come out, and the auto attack from Muzi is going to go through. Net looking to just give that gold over to the Thresh, who's going to be the better target to have that gold on anyway, because he's not going to be the carry. Down the bottom lane, we see Rathbone finally having that Cane transformation. He has, I believe, the blue Cane, and is looking for a solo kill onto the Hide It in my sock. However, the red buff is not going to be quite enough, as even an extra auto from the Cane would have actually landed that solo kill. First upgrade for Kai'Sa comes out as well. I believe it is going to be the Q, as she has hit that 80 threshold, giving it more projectiles and overall more damage. Pretty standard stuff here on the Kai'Sa that we see with the Noon Quiver, Serrated Dirk, and Pickaxe, as the Serrated Dirk helps give a little bit of extra lethality and get Kai'Sa closer toward that Q upgrade point. At this point, we do see Calm Bird looking to kind of farm under tower here, and this is where Gangplank's actually going to have a bit of a chance to abuse his lane opponent, because with free Sheen procs and maybe not even necessarily grass procs, he's going to have free reign just to kind of do whatever he wants to the Fiora here, as all she's focused on doing is last hitting under that tower. Earth Herald did actually get done here by Architect, meaning that the objectives are actually, the total amount of objectives are going to go back up to Sac State. However, the gank is coming in from Kank here, or the gank is coming in from Kane, as he does land that last hit onto the Gangplank with the help of the Fiora ultimate, and is going to retreat into his blue side jungle to look for a possible camp or just look to spend the hard-earned money. A little bit of damage coming in the bottom lane as well. However, Piccolo is going to make good use of that Guardian and the Seraphine ultimate as Kai'Sa gets caught out under the enemy tower. Piccolo is going to be the one brought low next. However, the kill credit is going to go over to the Seraphine. Syndra did burn the teleport just now, as Woozy is going to be the next to fall here, looking to maybe get out with his life. However, the Blast Cone is going to be canceled by the Syndra Scatter of the Week. Teleport coming in from the Gangplank here, as the Orianna is going to be the next to show up in the bottom lane here. Flash comes out from both the NAU AD carry as well as the Sac State mid lane, putting it net 6 feet under. Gangplank barrels do come through, getting a pretty good chunk of damage on Tianchi here. At this point, NAU is going to look to prevent a dive. However, Kane is here to show up. He gets the flash off. Command Shockwave goes through, finding no targets as Kane is using the Umbral Trespass. Sal's going to be the next possible victim here, as he's looking to get some damage on Piccolo as the flash Trial by Fire Q comes out, at least making that Gangplank death worth something. Overall, I would say that it's actually a better fight for NAU here. Kane is getting slightly more fed as the game goes on, and if he doesn't, as long as he doesn't give over the shutdown anytime soon, I do believe that Sac State is actually going to be much harder pressed in the next few stages of the game here. The problem that Sac State actually has here in this fight is that Kai'Sa really just stepped a hair bit too far and started taking tower aggro, which right away turned that 2v2 into a kind of hypothetical 3v2 with the help of that tower damage. And Piccolo really did a good job jumping on that opportunity and making sure that the Seraphine ult went through, as well as the root or stun from her E. We do see the Rift Trail get popped in the middle lane for Sac State. And Common Bird is actually going to be doing some chasing down of Shadowstar here, who is going to be playing that vision game and just looking to do what they can. 2 ultimates come down from the enemy mid laner and the enemy top laners. Common Bird's going to very narrowly get that solo kill up onto the Orianna. Rathbone is going to take a very hefty chunk of damage here from the Nilly Spear as the Night Harvester has been completed. Nilly Hop is going to try and go through. However, as Rathbone is sitting in the wall, nothing will come out of it. No more damage, no more nothing. With 3 members of each team in the top side of the map, Rathbone is looking to maybe look for a possible re-engage. However, Piccolo and Common Bird are both not really in the position to help support at this point. So there isn't going to be anything else coming out of it. As we do see Kane come in, as we do see Kane get another back in here, I would like to point out that he's opted for the Moby boots, which is going to be a really helpful tool, especially since he's going to be zooming through those walls with the extra movement speed that it gives, that his Shadow Step gives him, as well as just honestly being able to get a lot closer to enemy champions a lot quicker, give them less of a chance to react to his incoming damage. Third dragon is up, and it is going to be the Infernal Rift, like we did see earlier. Rathbone is again making very good use of the Shadow Step W combo on Kane here to get some poke damage out. No crazy damage has come through yet. However, Common Bird really needs to be careful here as Rathbone is going in on the Prowler's Claw. I believe the Shockwave has not gone out yet as Rathbone goes on a rampage gangplank. The first to fall is Common Bird is 1v3 in the enemy backline. Kaiser tries to dive in onto the NAU backline as well. However, Architect is actually going to take a kill on Common Bird as the dragon decides to go and put Common Bird out of commission. Overall, a very good fight again for NAU. They're finding themselves on a much better position this game than they were in the last game. Kane is really seeing the success that he wants to see here, and I'm actually a little bit surprised that he's not going for the tier build that has been popularized, I believe, mostly by Charismai. For those of you who are familiar with the Kane player in higher elo. But once more we do see mythic items coming in across the board. Everybody on the side of Sac State has their mythic except for Gangplank, who opted for the Essence Reaver first, which is a pretty good buy. In all honesty, there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. And however, everyone on the side of NAU actually has their mythic at this point. Common Bird doing a little bit of an interesting one from last game, and instead of opting for something like a Triforce, has instead gone for the Gore Drinker, which is going to help once the Fjord in the middle of the brawl here. It does take down a little bit of that side lane pressure ability because Fjord does not have any attack speed items. However, because her lunge and her E are going to be able to put tower damage down, it's actually not going to be as big of a problem as you might think. We are approaching the 20-minute mark here of the game, which means Baron is going to be on the map soon, and I do believe we did see one Rift Herald go through. However, Shadowstar is actually going to be the victim of a dive here. Sombrero goes through. However, the Umbral Trespass from Kane is going to be very clean in avoiding that, as Rathbone is now unstoppable, helping their top laner pick up another kill in that bottom lane. Really a rough game here for Shadowstar, as Kane has just done amazing jobs making sure he gets through the command shockwave. Piccolo is actually going to be caught out here by Architect and Woozy as the hook goes through and the rest of the damage follows up. Net is going to be in that Vayne ultimate and will be forced to flash over the wall and under their tower in order to stay alive here against that 2v3 situation. Actually 2v4, as they're as all the remaining members of Sac State were actually up in that top side of the map, making sure they had priority on the Baron vision. They will suffer a little bit for that here, as their tier 1 mid lane tower has gone down, leaving at a 2-tower deficit to their opponents on the side of NAU. At this point, because we do see Baron on the map, it is going to be a very heavily contested objective, especially because honestly both teams have the comps to be able to take Baron down early, but NAU is just in a much better position because they've been able to pick up these kills because of the Kane. little bit of a missed spear here onto the Scuttle Crab here in the bottom lane, as Architect's going to have no counterplay to Wrathbone as Wrathbone goes dominating, using mobility boost, movement speeds, as well as Shadow Step and Prowler's Claw to just get right up in the enemy jungler's face and take him out in really no time at all. Possible solo kill coming out from the Kai'Sa. Piccolo does whiff on that charm. Net is going to do nothing else so far, as there has been the Gangplank ultimate dropped. Really a narrow escape here for Piccolo, as if Hide It My Sock had any more damage, Piccolo probably would have been out here. And honestly, there may have been a potential Baron take. Next up on the chopping block, we do see Common Bird get caught up by 3 here. However, he is making use of those Fiora lunges to try and get away. Thresh Hook is going to miss here, and the rest of NAU is actually going to rotate onto the Baron here. Notified of this choice because of the vision they had previously, and although NAU has the control now, Common Bird is actually going to find a solo kill in the 1v2 onto the Orianna. Is actually going to be able to pull off the 2v1 here, more than likely onto the Gangplank. However, the minion wave is not going to allow that to happen, as Raspone is going to use the Umbral Trespass to put tons of burst damage out here onto the Kai'Sa. Architect is going to take a little bit of damage themselves, but not before throwing some spears at the NAU, making sure they know not to mess around. Fiora really had the chance to make a highlight play there. It was just a little bit unlucky that Sal had the flash available to get away from that. But we do see Tianchi landing a very nice solo kill here, punishing that Kai'Sa for staying out too far while on too low of an HP bar. We're also now at this point seeing tons of pings come down onto the Infernal Dragon, as it is going to be Dragon number 4. No soul point for either team yet, but if NAU secures this one, which it looks like they will, as Nidalee is sitting on the top side of the map, and there will be no contest from the Orianna, they will put themselves on soul point. And honestly, with Infernal Dragon being as valuable as it is, we might actually see another solo kill from the Kayn here. Prowler's Claw gets used, and the Blade's Reach has missed. Shadow Step is being used, and the Umbral Trespass goes through. Shadowstar is looking to make something happen. However, with another missed Shockwave, Wrathbone is going to go godlike and make sure the enemy mid laner is just absolutely feeling the pain. Possible dive coming in here from Kai'Sa. Scatterbeat goes through, and the Zhonya's goes through, making sure TNC is going to be able to put up just a little bit of health. 650 shutdown goes over to the Kai'Sa here, as the Gangplank ult is down, raining pain from above, as Net and Piccolo are possibly looking to a pick on the enemy jungler. Possible solo kill coming in from Common Bird, as Architect is going to be the next to fall here. Making good use of that Gore Drinker and the natural lifesteal that Fiora gets, especially with the interactions that she has off of Ravenous Hydra. And really, it's just going to be an impressive kill coming out from Common Bird. More aggressive plays as the Gore Drinker goes through. How the Seraphine ult is going to put down onto, I believe, 3 targets, as Vayne is going to pick up their second kill onto Woozy. Wrathbone once again looking for that dive. However, Kayn in the Umbral Trespass is going to go through. Possible death may be coming through from Kayn, as he nearly escapes with his life after being assailed from both the Gangplank and the Kai'Sa. Here we are just going to see NAU taking a few steps back, taking some of the enemy jungle camps and making sure they have that vision priority over the Baron. Wrathbone is going to have to be very careful here, as they are sitting a little bit low on mana. However, they will be assisted by the natural mana restore of being in the jungle that the Ember Knife and the Hellblade give, even after they've been converted into the chilling and challenging smites. Not all that much action going on here for the side of NAU, or really even Sac State. Sac State is going to be recovering from that poor fight they took. Honestly, I wouldn't even say they took it. They just were forced to deal with it, as NAU was putting up some pretty great pressure up onto their onto their middle inhibitor tower. As we see second item come through for Gangplank here, it is going to be the Immortal Shield Bow. It's a very popular item at the moment on the champion because of, like I mentioned earlier during the champ select, of the stats it offers in the crit strike and the lifeline shield. Personally, not a huge fan of it. I like to go more of the damage heavy build with Duskblade that gives you the invisibility on takedown, which honestly on Gangplank is a little bit better than you might think, as it allows you to put up even more pressure onto enemies in the middle of a team fight. However, it is a little bit of a higher risk playstyle because you're nowhere near as durable. No action coming out quite yet from any of the teams. Rathbone is looking just for more potential picks and really just damage overall. But NAU at this point, I assume is just either stalling for time on that dragon or waiting until Sac State makes some sort of mistake, and they can get a pick and maybe look to take Baron here. No other option or no other action is being taken by either team here. I'd like to make note that Calm Bird is putting down some pretty good pressure up in the top lane. However, they do have to be very careful here as the shutdown for Vayne goes on to Kai'Sa. Rathbone goes legendary and is using that umbral trespass. However, the ignite has gone down here from Woozy, and on just the last tick or two, the 1,000 gold shutdown is going to go over to the Thresh player here, leaving NAU in a very bad predicament, as the Infernal Dragon is now 40 seconds away from spawning. Sal's putting down immense pressure here on the bottom lane for their team, and two members of NAU are going to respond to make something happen and possibly stop that, but without any more vision or movement speed, they're really not going to be able to catch anyone out. Kane is going to be up here for this next dragon fight. However, he's going to have to zoom as fast as he possibly can to get to this dragon pit, because as soon as it spawns, I have no doubt whatsoever that Sac State is going to be able to put down a ton of damage and honestly just take down this dragon super fast. Some of the members of NAU have regrouped with themselves, however. They were looking for a possible pick on the Architect. The Scatter of the Week did miss by a pretty good margin, as well as the Seraphine E not really quite finding the mark. Nothing else quite yet so far, as we do see a ton of action coming out here from both teams. Kane is going to land himself a double kill here. And it looks like NAU is just going to be able to take Soul Point here with no problem. No smite is going to be had here for the Kane player. However, with the help of Fiora, Soul is going to go over to the side of NAU. Net looking for the possible solo kill on to hide in my sock here. Vayne does get the condemn off onto the Kai'Sa Killer Instinct, putting down some pretty good damage here as the trade is going to go through. Sal is going to be the next victim here as the 2v1 comes through, and the Fiora ultimate does get some of that healing off onto the top laner for NAU, putting themselves in once again a very good position. They are at a 4 dragon to 1 score, with the only other dragons this game going to be the Elder Dragon. Baron is on the table at this point, which means we are going to see a pretty hefty amount of damage coming out from the side of NAU, as they have a constant supply of burst of little explosions coming out of that Infernal Soul. Outside of that, we are going to have that Baron dance come up once again. The blue or the red buff for the side of Sac State is going to come up here, but at this point, it is going to be a very dicey game, as NAU is looking to make sure they have the appropriate pressure here to take Baron. They did just take the Infernal Soul, so they have that extra damage, but they have to be really careful here, as one lucky hook or a possible barrel hit could be the end of a really crucial member of the NAU's game plan. Backs are going through at this time. But with nothing else to really do across the map except make sure Baron has vision on it for both teams, it looks like we are just going to see some resets come through and make sure people have those item power spikes that they're looking to hit. So far, not too much action happening, other than just kind of waves being bounced back and forth by both teams. At this point, Gangplank has actually finished the third item on the collector, which means he's going to have 60% crit chance as well as the execute when it goes through. So it's definitely going to be a really hard game here for Sac State to come back from, as they're going to rely really heavily on the Kai'Sa. And honestly, Orianna hitting anybody with the Shockwave is the track record for that. This game has not been a good one. We are looking at a possible Baron take here from the side of NAU. Rathbone is actually going to utilize some vision to get a pretty good solo kill here onto Woozy as the Rampage goes through, as well as the refresh from the passive, taking out Kai'Sa in a near instant. With 2 members down for the price of none, really, as the Shockwave misses once again on the Orianna. And NAU is going to have a really easy time taking down this Baron, as Common Bird puts up a ton of pressure on the bottom lane. Net on the Vayne is going to be able to put immense damage out onto the Baron, especially with the Infernal Soul here. Baron does go over here for the side of NAU, as they are looking to now push mid and make use of that Baron Soul, crack open the enemy base, and maybe even end the game. Nidalee does land a pretty good stray spear here, as NAU is now going to be forced to back, with Common Bird looking to get a quick reset off and secure that Guardian Angel. At this point, Tianchi and Piccolo are going to get backs of their own off while making sure that mid lane priority is still held. And that nothing else too exciting going on for the moment. And as we get back, after I had to tab out real quick and check on some things, we did see Kane going for a pretty ballsy solo kill into the 1v3 here. However, more members of NAU were close by if anything were to go wrong. But at this point, NAU is looking to make sure they make use of that Baron buff and try and make sure that the enemy team's base gets cracked open so they can take game 2 for themselves. At this point, no picks have been made for either side. Still just NAU making sure those Baron minions get pushed in as fast and as hard as they can, really. Common Bird in that top lane is looking to take down that tier 2 top tower. However, Net may actually find a very good chunk of damage here. Not quite a solo kill, but Shadow Stars was put on the back foot once again. Up in that top lane, we will see that tier 2 tower go down for the side of Sac State. Meanwhile, Rathbone in the bottom lane is grouped with the rest of NAU, making sure that they're trying to get some poke damage off and apply some pressure as backs go through once again for Common Bird, finally working on their last item on that Fiora pick with a very hefty 304 CS and a really crazy shutdown. Rathbone goes dominating as Orianna is just wiped off the face of the earth. Baron buff is still active on the members of NAU here. Elder Dragon is going to be coming up shortly, and with no mid laner, I seriously doubt that Sac State is going to have any chance of contesting this dragon. And as soon as they take it, really, I expect NAU to be able to end the game here, as they're going to have a total of 6 Infernal Dragon buffs with the passive Elder Dragon burn, meaning they're going to be able to put down a ton of extra damage on top of it being true with the Elder Dragon execute. Baron is still active for just a little bit longer as well. Teleport coming in from the Syndra onto the bottom lane to help Net get in that bottom lane wave and get the tower pressure on. Kai'Sa is going to put down a pretty good chunk of damage here onto the Vayne, as well as the Killer Instinct going through. However, Net is going to be able to dash or get the tumble off invisible. Flashes come through from both the NAU mid laner and the bottom laner, and oh my god, Rathbone is in the middle of 4. Seraphine hits all 4 members of the enemy team, and Tianchi is going to be able to take down the Gangplank with the Elder Dragon execute. Puffs go go out left and right here as Syndra takes a double kill, and NAU is going to be able to walk right into the enemy team's base. Nidalee here is going to have to try and make some sort of miracle play happen, as respawn timers are at least half a minute long for the rest of their teammates. NAU doesn't really have too much left in terms of waves. However, Common Bird did bring one in from the top side of the map, meaning those Nexus turrets are going to go down, with the Nexus following shortly after. Common Bird getting that fountain dive off and trolling, giving off a 1,000 gold shutdown to the enemy Nidalee, as the ace goes through for Wrathpoem in game 2 for NAU. And we'll be back once again in a few minutes for game 3. Welcome back, everybody. We are back for game 3 of NAU versus Sac State. Sac State has opted for blue side once again, meaning they will play blue side 2 out of 3 times today. First round of bans has already almost finished up here, and NAU is going to ban out the Seraphine, changing up their ban patterns a little bit from the last game, making sure that super valuable champion just does not go over to the enemy team. It saw some pretty good success in the last game. There were a couple missed ults, but ultimately, you know, as long as Seraphine hits anybody with her ultimate, be it a teammate or an enemy, its range will get extended and it will hit some pretty ridiculous lengths. Gnar is going to be the first pick here. I don't entirely agree with that on the side of Sac State, unless it's a comfort pick for Sal here. The return pick is going to be the Camille from Common Bird. You know, we saw Camille in game 1. Camille is still a very strong side or split pusher, especially once she hits her 2-item power spike. She is still a very strong duelist as well, and can honestly provide some pretty good team fight help if she manages to ult someone in the back line, because when she does put down the Hextech ultimatum, anybody that is not the target she ults, I believe, gets displaced to the edges of it. Right away, we do see both AD carries actually being locked in here for both NAU and Sac State, as Kaisa was the lock-in here for NAU. So far, the hover is going to be Ashe for the side of Sac State. However, they are going to opt for the Galio instead. Very good pick here, as it will deny the Camille Galio combo that is seen sometimes in things like pro play. And honestly, just, you know, Galio is a solid pick on his own as well, especially if he goes something like the Predator with the Hextech Rocket Belt, which will give him a ton of extra movement speed and help him make sure those taunt catches go through. Xayah is going to be the return AD carry pick here for the side of Sac State. And honestly, if NAU doesn't do something to try and counter this, Xayah is going to be a very fearsome pick as a finisher to the series. NAU is waiting on that last pick here to finish up round 1 of picks and bans before we get into the finishing out of bans. And it's actually going to be Soraka here, which I'm not entirely sure about. You know, Soraka does have the global heal past 6, but honestly, as long as if Net on the Kaisa here gets caught out at any point, Soraka is going to be really hard pressed to actually make anything else happen. So I'd honestly be more surprised if NAU didn't ban any bot, or I would be more surprised if they didn't ban any bot lane champions, just because of, honestly, it's just, I think it'd be a better choice in this instance here. Second rounds of bans have come through, and we see the Hecarim come in from NAU, as well as the Silas from Sac State. Last ban is going to go through here in just a moment here, and I do believe we will see something similar to last game, where we saw something like the Cassiopeia get banned, and actually it will be the Corki, NAU making sure they don't want to see that mid lane pick come through once again, as Galio could actually be flexed into the support role in this situation. Junglers at this point are being hovered for the side of NAU, as the final ban for the side of Sac State was Echo. Instead of any of the other picks we saw just being hovered by NAU, it is actually going to be the Kindred here, another kind of champion that sits along the lines of Feast or Famine. And if the feeding if the feeding happens of the Kindred, she definitely has the chance to solo carry the game on her own. However, the Lee Sin is going to be locked in for Architect here, and this is going to be a really honestly tough jungle matchup in my opinion for Kindred. Lee Sin did receive a little bit of cooldown reduction onto his Q as a result of 11-4. But Lee Sin also has a bit of an advantage, I would say, at the level 6 mark and beyond over Kindred, unless Kindred has gotten some really hard scaling and worrying me here with the Teemo hover. But honestly, even then, Lee Sin I still think wins 1v1 quite a bit of the time, as long as he can kick Kindred out of the Lamb's Respite or anyone else that may be the kind of selected target for that. Not that you can target anybody with that. We will be getting into the 3-minute spectator delay here in just a few minutes, or in just a minute, really. And like we saw earlier, we do have Woozy on the Galio support, not on the mid lane, which is going to be interesting here because he's going to look for roam windows at the level 6 and maybe possibly even earlier, depending on what happens in lane. We will be getting, like I said just a minute ago, we will be getting that 3-minute spectator delay. So I'll be going over kind of what each team is looking for here. Ultimately, I do like Sac State's draft just a little bit more, just because they have opted for a little bit more of a frontline option, and it seems once again that NAU is very much lacking on that. So unless they get fed early, they're actually going to find themselves in a tougher spot unless they can then make picks. But either way, they will have interesting windows to look for fights, because if they manage to catch Gnar just out of Mega, he will actually not be able to go into Mega, as there's a short cooldown period before you can start getting the rage again. But if they do get caught out by a Gnar in a team fight, it can be over for them very quickly, as Gnar can go in onto a team fight very easily with his hops and possibly flashes, as well as Stride Breaker if he opts to build something like that this game. Followed by a Galio ultimate, which is going to be a massive layer of crowd control after crowd control on the side of NAU. But again, this all depends on whether or not they actually get caught out by these things. And NAU honestly has they have very limited options for engage, I would say. Their primary form of engage is probably going to be some sort of catch or a hook shot into a Hextech ultimatum from Camille, or maybe even a Killer Instinct dive from Kaisa, followed by an Orianna ultimate. We are down to the minute 45 spectator delay mark, so we will be getting into game rather shortly here. But ultimately, I think it's definitely, at least on paper here, Sac State is in a little bit of a better position. All their lanes have to do is really not feed, and Lee Sin can use his advantages as an early game jungler to do what they did in game 1, where they had the Olaf pop off and take a ton of early objectives and get some ganks on and help his team get segue nice and smoothly into the mid game, so they could then take the rest of the game for themselves. At this point, we are down to the 60-second mark on the spectator delay. Ultimately, you know, it's I don't really know what else to say about either team. In terms of individual matchups, I'm honestly once again expecting Sac State to put up a more aggressive front in the bottom lane, especially with Piccolo on the Soraka here, because the champion is just naturally not a very aggressive champion. But the goal here will be to keep Net nice and healthy on that Kaisa throughout lane and just kind of survive and hopefully not give up too much pressure like they have in the past. In this series, I do enjoy seeing Tianqi play. And honestly, you know, even though Orianna may not see a ton of solo kills by herself, with the help of Kindred and actually on that level 6 mark, I have no doubt that there will be a bit of jungle mid action going on. And honestly, if Tianqi is going to opt for something like the teleport again, then it brings an even bigger map presence to the board of NAU, and it should give them hopefully an extra opportunity to land some extra kills here and there. And we are into the loading screen, so we do have a chance to take a look at some of those summoner spell options as well as the keystone runes. Spawns have come through, and nothing looks entirely out of place for either team in terms of keystones. The only one I'm a little interested in is actually the Azir one, but because the Hail of Blades is another attack speed rune, it just offers him another way to kind of segue into some of that burst damage that he can do, as his soldiers' attack speed is based off of his own. Right off the get-go, we do see both teams once again fill into that 5-point vision format, or 5-point defensive vision format, making sure no invades come through, no possible catches will be going out from anybody. And really, it's just kind of, you know, it's a really standard start. There's nothing entirely wrong with it, and you know, it's a safe play all around. It gives your teammates chances to rotate over if the level 1 shenanigans do happen. Sal on that Gnar is looking for a little bit of pokes to kind of try and feel out the enemy positions. And we will actually see Tianqi take a bit of a poke here from one of the Azir soldiers level 1. Ooh, an interesting play coming out from Sac State's bot lane. Galio does have the flash here, and I believe that if he does opt for the taunt, that Sac State could look for a possible level 1 kill. They will not actually sit in that river bush like I had expected them to, but instead they'll be sitting in the middle lane bush, just in front of the alcove, and may possibly look for some extra damage level 1, but outside of that I can't really tell what else. Zai is going to get that level 1 W off, and Soraka and Net are both immediately going to flash as the taunt goes down from Woozy. Both of the Galio sums did get burned here. However, Net is going to be able to escape with their life in a very ballsy level 1 play coming out from Sac State's bot lane. So far, really everything goes as normal. Sac State's mid laner, I believe, did opt for a somewhat deeper ward onto the enemy Raptors pit, which means that Wrathpoem could get spotted out there if they opt for that particular camp. Instead, it looks like they are just going to do a full blue side clear into some buffs. Excuse me. As well as Sal getting some priority up in the top lane onto Kama Bird. If honestly, depending on who Kindred had marked here, Sal on that Gnar could be a very juicy target for that first gank of the game. But with a very smart and safe ward going out from the Gnar into the red side tribush, then there's really not going to be too much wrong. We actually will be seeing an early dive here. Taunt goes off from Woozy as the Justice Punch goes out. Architect is going to be helping, and First Blood goes over to the Galio player. Teleport comes out as well, as Hide It in My Socket is going to escape within an inch of their life. Orianna's hot on the chase as the flash goes out and some autos go through. The Feather Collar goes through, making sure Xayah picks up a little bit of crowd control. However, the auto attacks from the Clockwork passive on Orianna is going to pick up that kill and make sure that teleport is worth it. No more kills will go through, however, as Architect did force the flash from him, was forced to flash to try and stay alive. And back up. Common Bird going for a little bit of a trade here up in the top lane. Nothing too crazy. I don't actually think the Camille true damage went off here. But at this point, tons of emergency pings will go down from the side of Sac State, as they understand that Rathbone is more than likely in the enemy blue side and looking for a possible gank onto the Angry Yordle. After a little kerfuffle, it's back to business as usual. A good invade coming out from Rathbone here on the Kindred. Make sure that Lee Sin is denied that Scuttle Crab. However, he won't actually get confirmation of that up until the point he actually walks to his blue side. And he used bot lane. He's actually in a little bit of a predicament here, as I believe they have a shoving lane into their lane opponents. Zaya did opt for the Sheen, which is going to build into what I imagine the Essence Reaver, as it is still a crit item. Not entirely sure why the Zaya would be going that first, when something like the Gale Force is the thing, and Noon Quiver overall just provides very good stats for the lane section of the game. But the Sheen can also as well provide some pretty good poke onto lane opponents, as well as being able to have an easier time securing creeps in lane with the added ability or attack damage proc. First dragon of the game is going to be that Cloud Dragon, as 3 members of Sac State are going to secure that in a very timely fashion at that 5 minute and 38 second mark. Playing a very good, consistent early game here, as they've been really good about taking those early objectives. The problem they had last game was that they wound up losing out on some of that, as NAU's bot lane was able to kind of make use of their lack of pressure and actually go assist Rathbone, who was on the Kayn at the time, with those objectives. Lane does get pushed in here once again for Camille, just ceding most of the lane pressure over to Gnar, as Common Bird really doesn't have too much of a problem making those last hits come through on the top lane. First backs have gone in for some of the other champions across the board as well. Rathbone opting for the full Berserker's Greaves rush on Kindred, whereas Architect is going that lethality build on Lee Sin, and a missed flash from Common Bird is not going to be able to do the Camille hookshot stun. Rathbone at this point is putting down whatever damage they can. Teleport has come out from Shadowstar as the not the shuffle, the Emperor's Divide goes through. Hextech Ultimate does get put down. However, Common Bird is going to suffer for their hubris here, as the double kill goes out onto his ear after a very nice resonating strike from the Lee Sin. Very unfortunate fight here for NAU. There was the gank being set up for the top lane. However, that missed flash from the Camille really was why Gnar got to live in this situation. Despite the CS advantage, Lee Sin actually now is still maintaining 100% kill participation, which means he's actually going to be sitting a pretty good, I would say, even state for now, but the XP state later could be an entirely different story. Really, Tianchi is going to take a very poor trade really here from the Azir, as the Hail Blades is making itself known for that damage. Shockwave goes through on a Shadowstar, and the Shurima Shuffle is not available. However, the dash toward the tower will happen. Rathbone is not 6 and cannot initiate those Kindred tower dives quite yet. And no further action will be taken from either side. Small trades going throughout in the top lane. Common Bird getting some pretty decent true damage out onto the Gnar here, and making use of that vision denial through the bush. However, that hyper proc will go through from the Gnar. So ultimately, it does leave both top laners in a relatively similar HP state. Meanwhile, on the bottom side of the map, we do have NAU just kind of looking to make sure they can get that wave bounce back toward them from their opponents. But Hide It and Woozy, being well aware of this, are going to look for actually a little bit of a trade. However, the E silence from the Soraka is going to cancel that Galio taunt, meaning you won't be able to find anything off of it. Possible fight may break out here in the bottom lane, as Piccolo is going to be the one caught out here as the Root Claw goes down, and a double taunt comes out from the Galio once again. Net does burn the Killer Instinct here to get that shield off. However, it's now up to whenever the mid laners get there. Shurima Shuffle does go through onto Rathbone, who is forced to use that Lamb's Respite, and the kick from Lee Sin showing why that champion is so good against against that Kindred pick. Tianxi is going to be the next to suffer from that. A double kill going over to Lee Sin, showing just how powerful that champion really is in the early game and giving him a further set of progress toward his first item. The possible dive may be going out on a Kaisi here. However, she is backed up far enough that Sac State really just decided it wasn't worth it. This point, it is just going to be kind of a reclamation of vision for NAU. And I don't think we've actually seen Kindred get any sort of stacking done yet. The first possible stack is going to be that Scuttle Crab up on the top side of the map, as I believe the first Scuttle Crab stack that spawns is always going to be... excuse me. When the Scuttle Crabs first spawn, one of them is always going to be that first mark for Kindred, as far as I know. But other than that, you know, it really just goes to show that Kindred really is fitting along that feast or famine playstyle, just because she has not gotten any stacks at all really in this game, and it's into that 10-minute 30 mark. Wrathpoem is going in onto the Gnar here. However, they have to be very careful as this rock ult comes in. Wrathpoem looking for that execute damage as Gnar goes mega. Execute damage goes through, but it's really not going to amount to too much because Gnar is sitting in that mega form and had a bit of that extra HP going on. Dragon number 2 in that Ocean Dragon is going to be coming up, so we will either see a Mountain Rift or a Infernal Rift, and it looks like it's going to be another Mountain Rift, as I believe that was the first one we saw in Game 1. Kindred is finally going to take a stack for themselves here by securing that Scuttle Crab. However, it's small wins compared to the already 2 objectives of Sacramento State, as well as the gold lead that NAU has, or that Sac State has, of 3.7k at this point in the game. As we do see Rift Herald come up, we are going to take note that Lee Sin is going to start that right away with the help of Galio, making sure he's using that roam timer properly. Another thing to take note of here is that once that Rift Herald is secure, Lee Sin is actually more than likely going to drop that in the bottom side of the map and just take first tower straight away. I suppose the other thing could happen if Sac State really felt the Rift Herald burning a hole in their pockets is they could just four-man top and take the first tower for themselves there as well. Bird here is actually going to be put down under a lot of pressure as that Rift Herald has gone through. And it looks like it's going to be dropped in that top lane. NAU's bottom lane did what they could to return some of that bottom side pressure. However, with Rift Herald going up and first tower going down, Sac State is going to find themselves with a massive chunk of change in their pocket from all sides, as the first blood tower is an extremely valuable thing to take, especially before that 14-minute mark when tower plates fall. Shelly will get that second charge off, making sure she's got plenty of value left to go. Hummingbird putting in a very ballsy E flash up onto Sal here. Kindred does put the Lamb's Respite down as Woozy is now the one caught out by a command shockwave. Woozy still in a pretty good shape here as the true damage comes out from Hummingbird. Resonating Strike is out and Tianxi picks up their second kill of the game as Sal is forced to flash over. However, the Gnar will shove Hummingbird right into the wall as Hummingbird is now stuck in 1v3 situation as both Wrathpoem and Tianxi are both put down. Hummingbird is brought very low and is looking to just get straight over to the enemy tower and is trying to make an escape through the river happen. However, Shadowstar is going to go on a rampage on that Azir pick. And really, it started out as a potential good play from NAU, I have to say. It's not the worst play that they could have made in that situation. Certainly, they could have done a lot worse, as I believe they did manage to pick up a kill there. But ultimately, it's still another 3-for-1. And, you know, even with no shutdowns really being claimed, it's just not, I just can't see where it's worth it in any sense of the word, really. At this point, we do see the second tower for NAU fall to the hands of Xayah. And really, Sac State just has such an immense hold on this game at the moment. Lee Sin has opted for the Eclipse on the mythic item, which means he is going to have an even stronger early and mid game. But once he gets into those later stages of the mid game, the damage on that will fall off. And he'll be looking at, honestly, a lot squishier of a build, depending on what he follows up with this. With no pressure across the map really anywhere, and he was sitting in a very tough situation to try and get any sort of farming done, just because they're for the most part, really, their waves, at least for the moment, have been pushed out toward the enemy, which means they're going to rely a lot heavier on the enemy pushing those waves back in order for them to be able to make any sort of farming happen. The only kind of exception to this being the jungle camps that respawn every couple minutes for the Kindred, but even then it's still not looking great for NAU, as they're sitting at a basically 7,000 gold deficit. Some of the mythic items have come in for the members of NAU, with that Triforce on the Camille, as well as the Kraken Slayer and Luden's Echo for the Kai'Sa and Orianna respectively. Ultimately, while they have hit some of those first items, it is going to be a little bit of a day late, a day and a dollar too late, or a day late, dollar short, excuse me. And really, they're going to be hard pressed if they want to try and contest this dragon at all. Since it's not soul point quite yet, however, it will be putting Sac State on soul point. I think NAU should honestly just be pushing in a wave and trying to get some tower pressure off to maybe try and take a little bit of something for themselves in these situations. Dragon is getting done, and no catches will be made here, as honestly the only thing that NAU does in response is clear the mid wave. And here we see some of that 4 and 0 Azir power coming in with that Hail of Blades, as Tianchi is going to take that Luden's proc from the Soldier Spear. Corrupting Potion is in effect, and it is putting in a good little bit of healing, especially as Piccolo on that Soraka has now entered the mid lane. However, with a catch from Lee Sin, Rathbone is going to be put down very low without any chance to use Lamb's Respite quite yet. Down in the bottom lane, we do see a little bit of pressure coming in from Gnar onto that Kai'Sa, as Kai'Sa is sitting on that 1-2-1 score line with the Kraken Slayer. Is not going to be much of a match for that Stride Breaker damage that Gnar has. Rathbone is going to drop that Lamb's Respite, as Woozy and Architect are trying to make a play happen. Heal goes through, and Architect is actually going to be the shutdown here, going over the Orianna. Rathbone still very low, as Combo Bird is going to be the next to die to Shadowstar, as Shadowstar goes unstoppable. Hide It in My Sock is going to try and get that Gale Force execute damage off. However, no other kills will come out of it. And honestly, I would say this has probably been the first worth it fight that NAU has taken. They did get a shutdown. They did trade another kill back. However, with the response of a third tower being taken, the shutdown honestly gets kind of matched in value. And Sac State is really just able to get away with backs and no sort of danger here. A close cancel was almost had onto the Xayah here from the Orianna and Kindred duo, but nothing else ultimately came up of it because they were just a little too late in being able to cancel that. At this point, we did actually see Rathbone walk over a blue ward, and whether or not they actually saw it or not is up for debate. However, we do see at this point in the game that second Rift Herald is up, and because of that blue ward, Sac State is actually going to have more or less full knowledge of where NAU is at this point. I don't believe that Rift Herald has been... Oh, I stand corrected. Rift Herald has been started up by the Lee Sin and the Xayah, and even though NAU has full knowledge of this, I don't know how much they'll actually be able to do here in terms of contesting the objective, especially since Rathbone has opted for the back here to finish out that Gale Force mythic item. Here we actually see a little bit of an invade coming through from the side of Sac State. Rathbone making sure to smite that red buff away to ensure no other contest is going to go through. Rift Trail is going to get dropped on the bottom lane here, and first charge from Shelly 2.0 is going to go through. However, I don't think there's going to be much other value gotten out of it, as the eye will open up, Shelly will turn her back, and it'll get popped, and she'll be out of the game once more. Lots of pings coming down on Shadowstar here, as NAU is actually going to look for a bit of a catch. Common Bird did get the hook shot off and has gone for the Flash Hextech ultimatum. Galio is going to get that 3-man ultimate, as well as leave a 1-man taunt. Shutdown for these years going to go on to Kaisa here. However, Lee Sin has entered the fight now and is looking for that damage on net. Kick goes out from the Lee Sin, sending Kindred flying back toward the enemy team. However, with burn summoner spells left and right, no other deaths will be had for the side of either team. Possible catch coming out here as Rathbone is putting in a very greedy play. However, with the ultimate and the flash available, Zai is going to be able to get out of that one scot-free. As the 4th dragon of the game and sole point for Sacramento State is going to come up. And he was hoping to contest this here. However, with Shadowstar up in the top lane, being able to use that teleport should the need arise, and Kindred not even finished respawning yet, I don't know how much of a chance NAU is actually going to have to deny this dragon unless they use the Lamb's Respite to maybe stop the smiting of the objective and try and take it for themselves there. But then again, they're going to be pretty hard pressed against the damage of Lee Sin, Azir, and Xayah. Dragon spawns and is immediately started by NAU, who, for once this game, finally have some sort of priority on the vision. Common Bird is going down on that Azir, and the steal comes through from Galio, securing that Mountain Soul for themselves. Common Bird is going to be the first to fall. The Architect here as Rathbone was brought very low, slain by Woozy. Piccolo is now running away 2v1 from Sal and Woozy. However, there will be no movement speed, and there will be no flashes available, as Net is going to be the next to possibly get away with his life. However, with the rotates coming in from the rest of Sac State, the ace will go through, as teleports are coming in across to the mid lane from the Azir, with 4 members of blue team pushing in that bottom lane. I honestly don't see any less than 2 inhibitors going down here, even with the respawn timers coming up. Sac State really just has such a dominant stranglehold on this game at their 10,000 plus gold lead. First inhibitor tower falls, and Rathbone is going to use that Lamb's Respite as a ton of burst damage comes in through from his ear. Galio gets burned as the hero's entrance gets put down, and don't think it catches anybody. Piccolo is going to get hit by that Gnar, as well as the flash shove going through. Gnar is going to be the one casualty so far for this fight, as Woozy dives under the tower and is forced to flash back out. 2 inhibitors are down for the side of NAU, and now they're just going to be focused on clearing those waves. Honestly, a really rough time here for NAU. The fight at Dragon was a terrible one to have had happen, especially with that steal going over on the Mountain Soul. It really just puts a dampener on any sort of outlook for the game itself. At this point, we do see Sac State sitting on an almost 12,000 gold lead with Baron on the board. All members of NAU have finished their mythic items at this time. However, it looks like basically across the board there are at least full components, if not full item completions, available, with only 2 shutdowns available from the side of Sac State as well. Baron is started up by Sac State here, as NAU I don't think has any sort of vision over the pit. They should be more or less aware that the Baron is going to go down here, and honestly, I don't think that they're looking to contest. They're just looking to maybe try and turtle out and kind of hold out on some sort of prayer, as Baron does go down, extending that gold lead just a little bit further for Sac State. They're going to be grouping up here in the top side of the map to try and get that 3rd inhibitor down tutorial style. Sac State at this point really just doing whatever they want in the enemy red side. Some bushwookiing coming out from NAU, maybe looking for a possible pick. At this point, I would say it's a last-ditch effort. Kama Bird sticking to that bush strats as Lee Sin puts the Q out, revealing one of the members of NAU. With all 5 members of blue team putting pressure down onto this topside inhibitor tower, NAU is going to be really hard pressed to do anything here, especially as they just move right onto the inhib with the front line of Sac State just doing a little bit of posturing, making sure nobody else can step up to the Azir and the Xayah, who are putting on a ton of damage. Wrathbone is trying to do what they can to get onto the Azir here. However, with damage coming out in spades from both players, Galio's heroic entrance is burned. But it doesn't matter, as Baron empowered minions are now assailing the Nexus towers with both a cannon minion and super minions coming in from the destroyed inhibitors coming out. And he was stuck between trying to fight for their lives as the Lamb's Respite goes down, with Wrathbone really just trying to do anything to make anything happen for their team. As the 6th death comes through, Woozy is going to get a taunt underneath that Nexus tower, and neither Nexus tower has fallen here as the double kill comes out for the Lee Sin. Red team forced into their fountain without any sort of counterplay available, as the Nexus towers and the Nexus itself will fall for game 3, going over to Sac State, taking the series 2-1 over NAU. And we will be ending the stream here in just a moment. Oops. Not entirely sure why that was going out. Thank you all for tuning in. And if you enjoyed, please tune in once again. I believe the next NAU League of Legends game will be once again on Saturday at 4 p.m. MST. For Eastern time zones, that would be, I believe, 6 p.m. And for Pacific, that is going to be 3 p.m. So if you enjoyed, please tune in once again. And thank you for watching.